and then you call them up and you're like, hey, you want to find out what their problem is. And there's a lot of the sellers are going to tell you what it is, and that's not really their problem. You want to really find out, like, what's the problem you're trying to solve. And if you can solve that for them and work out a figure, then you're good. You just usually get it up under contract that day or the next day. Then you go to close. So what I do is I'll close in like 2-3 weeks, like as long as it takes the title company. I pay cash. Then we'll go in and put, I don't know, like 30-40 grand into the property. After it's done, I'll go to the bank, take a loan back out, and I'll pull my initial cash back out, and I just do it again. It's like getting free houses.
Hey, welcome listeners. Today, I have the distinct honor and privilege of having Bryan Driscoll on our show. Bryan is got a great story, successful in business, an entrepreneur who's built an internet marketing company, a digital marketing company, and at the same time has been a super successful real estate investor, and he's figured out a way to marry the two and done some pretty amazing things. So Bryan, welcome to the show today, man.
What's up, Paul? Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah. Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you. So just diving right in, man, let's talk about your background. You've done a lot here. Tell us how you got into business and real estate and all that.
Yeah, sure thing. So I got into real estate back in, I think it was like 98. My dad took me to Ron LeGrand's workshop here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No money down guy, right?
Right. Yeah. So I'm sitting in a room. I'm like 18 years old. I don't even know if I was still in high school or right after. But I'm 18. I pulled out my credit card at the end, gave him like $2,000, like $1,800 or $2,000 for the course. Okay. And I'm like, I'm going to get into real estate. We're going to make all this money, not spend any of our own money. And I put ads out and followed the system, and I got a whole bunch of leads, but I failed. I didn't know what to do with them. Like I had people hitting me up. I'm 18 years old. These guys want to sell me their house. I got no cash. Right. So it didn't work out then for me. Right. But I learned about real estate back then. And then probably about 2004, I got into digital marketing. So I was messing around with SEO on a platform. It was called Odesk at the time. Now it's Upwork. Mm-hmm. And I just started freelancing, generating leads for people. And I was freelancing on SEO, showing people how to do it and helping them with their website. That grew into a company. So I started doing $20 an hour just consulting. And then I'm up to like $150, $200 an hour. And I opened up an agency called Think Big Marketing. So that grew into an actual business. So I was dealing with like bigger stuff like e-commerce and national lead gen. And then I got back into real estate. I saw a deal on Craigslist. And I hit up the guy and I closed on the property. And I saw on the HUD, it was like $15,000 wholesale fee. And the deal made sense too. I'm like, it made 100% sense even with the numbers. I'm like, I wonder if I could market and generate my own leads. So I tossed up a website, started trying to market my area and crushed it. So that's kind of how we married the marketing and real estate. So now we own a company called Motivated Leads, where we just generate leads for real estate investors. But that's kind of how it all came to be.
Okay, wow. So when did you do that? Was it about what in the timeline that you first started generating the real estate leads for yourself?
Those were probably about 6 or 8 years ago, somewhere around there. It was a while ago.
Okay. So kind of a serendipity that your two paths crossed. Again, the real estate one.
And you know what? Because I started generating leads and I only buy in one zip code and we were getting leads all over the place. So we started just JVing with people. Mm-hmm. Like I just find the wholesalers in Pittsburgh. I'm like, hey, I got a bunch of overflow leads. Can you guys do anything with these? Mm-hmm. And we were sending them for a couple of years. And then it's like, wait a minute, we could probably do this nationally. Because the leads were working. You know what I mean? Right.
Well, why just out of curiosity, were you just focused on, did you say one zip code for yourself?
Yeah, just time. Like I don't know. I don't want to drive real far. So I bought a property probably about 30 minutes away. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, was that a time suck? Because I was managing the contractors, things like that. So I'm driving over there, meeting with them, coming back. And real estate's my side thing. Like I'm a digital marketer by trade. I'm like, this is taking me like 4 hours a week, maybe 5 hours, something like that.
Right.
So yeah, that's why.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's evolved. You basically got proof of concept for yourself. And then you've expanded out. You're like, hey, if it works in Pittsburgh in the zip code, it'll work pretty much anywhere. And so you've proven that. So what kind of leads are we talking about? So if you're talking to an entrepreneur, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners here that aren't full-time. They're like you, they've got another business or a job, but they also have extra cash and they're investing and so forth. We do have some full-time investors and whatnot, but I mean, what are these leads of? How could they use these leads?
So what I'm targeting is, motivated sellers. So I always try to find people with off-market deals that have a problem. So I'm looking for the beat-up houses, like agents, things like that. They're looking for the houses that are pretty. I'm looking for hoarder houses, inherited homes, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so we have a reason to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of it kind of as is. We don't, we're just going to take our money and run for whatever reason.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. And so that's attractive to somebody who wants to do like a renovation, a flip, or a renovation hold. I think you mentioned we were talking before. Some of the information I got here when I was looking into your history and background was you use the BRRR method.
Yeah.
Go explain that for a moment and how you would take a lead that you generate if for yourself or if someone were to work with you and get a lead. What does that look like, the whole kind of process?
All right. So first, when I got into real estate, I was trying to do the burn method, but I didn't have enough money, right? So I was taking commercial loans, putting 20% down, and my money was tied up. So eventually I saved up enough cash to buy properties, like literally cash. Like I'll just go write a check. So we'll get a lead. They hit us up. You have to call these people really fast. But you hit you up and then you call them up and you're like, hey, you want to find out what their problem is. And there's a lot of the sellers are going to tell you what it is. And that's not really their problem. You want to really find out, like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And if you can solve that for them and work out a figure, then you're good. You just usually get it up under contract that day or the next day. Then you go to close. So what I do is I'll close in like 2-3 weeks, like as long as it takes the title company. I pay cash. Then we'll go in and put, I don't know, like 30-40 grand into the property. After it's done, I'll go to the bank, take a loan back out, and I'll pull my initial cash back out, and I just do it again. It's like getting free houses. I just had to save up. I didn't have enough money to actually be able to do it truly cash. Because otherwise, if you go to the bank initially, you got to put 20% down, and then that's stuck in the house, stuck in the property.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So you're basically recycling your cash, you're buying these, but the point I heard was you're looking for motivated sellers. And so you got to be ready to go with these guys. You got to call them fast. You got to follow up, follow through, figure out what's really motivating the sale and then make it happen. Yeah.
And you know what? It's funny. It's funny on the speed too. This past weekend, I was in Vegas with my wife for our anniversary and I had a lead come in, and the leads that come in our zip code, we don't get a ton because we're getting them from the whole city. So when we got one in a zip code, I jump on it fast. So I call this guy this past Saturday, which I'm in Vegas, and talk to him. He's like, yeah, my father just passed away. I have 2 properties I want to sell. And I'm like, dude, I'm in Vegas. Like, I can send someone over there. And I called my guy, Nick. I'm like, hey, can you check it out? He's like, I can check it out tomorrow. So I called up a guy back. I'm like, hey, can we do tomorrow? And he said, yeah. And then an hour later, he texts me. He's like, you know what? We went another direction. I'm like, just like that time, I'm like, that sucks. So I called him anyways when I got back because I saw he listed it on the MLS. I'm like, dude, I told you I'm a cash buyer. He's like, well, I only listed 1 on the MLS. I still have the other property. So I went and met with him and I gave him an offer on the other one. But it's like that small period of time cost like $10,000 if I got the deal, because now I got to pay an agent. You know what I mean? So it's like so important with anything online. If someone's motivated, you got to get back with them fast.
Right. Okay. So you're not only generating leads, I imagine, for investors. You're coaching them through a little bit this process. Like, okay, here's how you're successful with these leads.
A little bit. Like a lot of the guys that we're working with are a little bit more seasoned. They have to have good processes and know how to close. We just tell them, you got to call. Like if someone raises their hand, says they want to sell their property online, you need to call them fast, because a lot of times they're going to fill out a couple people's websites.
Right. Yeah, because if they're motivated, they're looking, they're not just going to respond to your ad, right?
Right. Yeah, especially if you think about like on Google, someone's at 3 a.m, they're filling out the first website, then the second one, then the third, until they find that solution they're looking for.
Yeah. No doubt. People are in a situation like that. They're driven by emotion and speed, and they want to get it now. And of course, we're in a now generation anyway, a now culture. Right. So, all right. So very cool. So this has been successful for you. So now you're building your own real estate portfolio. You're selling a lot of leads to wholesalers, which is it sounds like a really burgeoning business. Have you seen any trends? I know we've been in, the market in the last couple of years has been crazy with COVID and, post-COVID and all that. Most of these, I imagine, are single family and duplex kind of 1 to 4 unit properties that you're getting leads on.
Yeah, mostly singles.
Okay. Any trends that you're noticing in that space?
I'm noticing like end of last year, everyone was getting scared. And then even the beginning of this year in 2023 with interest, but it's going like gangbusters ever since probably the end of January, beginning of February. We thought we were going to see a big slowdown,
Yeah.
but there's not.
Yeah. Well, I have that feedback from a lot of people, and honestly, you're going to see rates continue to come down, and as rates continue to come down, it's going to be more of a feeding frenzy. As the inflation starts to abate, and it has, and the numbers are coming out. Just the 10-year bond, the yields have really improved over the last couple of days, but the trend is sort of our friend. I think the Fed is about done hiking. They seem to do things a little too late and a little too long, and that's par for the course here. They should have started raising rates about a year and a half ago. But anyway,
Yeah.
we are where we are. But I'm getting the same feedback from everyone, is that A, there's not very much inventory, and B, they're starting to, people are competing for. Now, these are not necessarily the wholesale, but maybe the retail homes that are on the market. If for the end buyer wanting to buy that
Right.
property that you fixed, there's competition in there. There's multiple offers again, and some crazy things starting to happen.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a lot of investors too switching from flipping to wholesaling though for the time being. Because a lot got stuck with their hand in the cookie jar last year. Like a lot of guys took a beating last year because they, especially in like San Diego, San Francisco, like places with really high real estate, they got the property and the market dropped, and they're trying to flip it, and now they're selling it for a break even. So they wasted all their time and money. So a lot of those guys are switching just wholesaling for the time being until they see what the market does.
Yeah. I had a guest on a few weeks ago that he owns a lending company, and he said they're getting ready to start a wholesaling company, as a matter of fact. And so, different markets too are different. Like in our area in Virginia, it's a fairly steady market. We have a strong military influence, and so we don't see those major growth highs like you would see in a San Diego or a Phoenix or whatnot. But those also have a pretty steep, backsides, when it starts to fall.
Yep.
So I imagine it is different, and you're seeing things differently in different parts of the country, since you're not mailing, but you're generating leads all over.
Yeah, and it is like I'm in Pittsburgh too, so we don't really go up and down either. But yeah, some of the other places, like some of these flippers are getting hammered. Like I'm hearing like big losses just because they're planning on flipping, and everyone was selling to institutions. It's like, oh yeah, we can sell for top dollar, stuff like this. And then once the market slows down, you don't have any cash left. You have to get rid of your properties,
right?
Or else you're out of business.
Yeah, the music stops. Yeah, I mean, the ones that have been around, I've been in the business since 1998, so I've seen a few cycles, and it is interesting for the ones that get in, particularly that got in the last couple of years. When same thing with the stock market, right? If you got in, you're young, and you've seen nothing but this upward trajectory. You're like, I cannot lose at the stock market, right? I was like, oh yes, you can.
Yep. It comes.
Yeah, it does. There's always a judgment day, and the smart money, so much money is made though in real estate and in the markets when things are going bad, right? Because opportunities present.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're right, because that's what I was even talking with a lot of guys last year too. Some smart guys are like, you got to be liquid. So I still think something bad's coming. I don't know when. Like the market can't keep going like this. It's like, make sure you got some cash liquid, because when it crashes, which it will someday. Yeah. The people that make the most and do really well are the guys that can jump.
Yeah.
Like you have cash you can deploy right then.
Cash. Yeah, absolutely. Liquidity is always king, and banks are tightening up as well right now. So liquidity is definitely going to be the thing that drives opportunity. There's a lot in the multifamily space as well. That's not really your space, but there are a lot of apartment complexes that are running into issues because they got really cheap money. And now that those loans are terming out, because typically in multifamily, you're not getting a 30-year fixed rate, you're getting a 5-year term. Those are coming due, and those rates have gone way up. And so the cash flow, the cash service, debt service is nowhere near where it was. And so there's going to be some opportunities there for cash and liquid heavy investors to go in and get nice deals.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right too, because I do commercial loans also, and it's a 5-year adjustable, so they're starting to reset. And I'm looking at, like, in the next 4 years, everyone's loans are going to reset. And if you're like a lot of these investors, a lot of guys I know, they're like barely cash flowing. So if your interest goes up, it puts you in a negative. It doesn't matter if you own 5 or 10 properties, but what about you if you own 100 or 200? Like that's real money then.
That's it. So this is real money. Yeah, it gets real fast at that point. Yep. Here's where experience really plays in, and obviously nobody has a crystal ball, and it's impossible to time. But it is interesting where the trends are. And I'll say this though: no matter where you are in an investing career, cash is always king. Liquidity, having dry powder on the sideline to to absorb any unforeseen negative economic situations, number one, or two, take advantage of opportunities is just good business sense and experience,
Yeah.
wisdom.
And it's good for your sanity.
Yeah.
Like, just have some cash sitting over as reserve, because something, you're going to get punched someday.
The sleep at night factor, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. If you want to be a long-term player, I mean, gosh, it's easy to make money in markets in the short run. In a lot of markets, opportunities present, but it's like, can you maintain your money and then build wealth in the long run is really what this is all after, which is the game. Switching gears here then, Bryan, you've got a pretty interesting history, not just in business and real estate, but personal health and nutrition. I understand that you went through a period of time where you lost a lot of weight. Talk about that. What was it? What was that all about?
Yeah, sure. So it was last year, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And I took my family to Disney World in January. I was trying to go somewhere warm in the winter, right? And I saw a picture. I'm like, man, I'm pretty fat. So I'm like 5'8", 5'9". I was weighing almost 240 pounds.
Okay.
And I didn't really feel it. I mean, you feel it a little bit, but I'm like, geez, man, I got to do something. So I saw a post on Facebook. One of my buddies, Ryan Fisher, he owns a title company up here in Pittsburgh. He weighed like 290 and then competed in a bodybuilding contest. Like, he lost a bunch of weight. I'm like, dude, how did you do that? He's like, well, I hired a personal trainer named Stacy. And so he introduced me, and I go hooked up with her, and she takes all your measurements and gives you the meal plan and the workout plan. And I just decided, hey, you know what? 2022 is my year for health. So it sucked. We were exercising. She put me on macro, like a diet, and a lot of exercising, carbs, things like that. But I was trying to figure out a lifestyle versus like crash diets, things like that. Yeah. And basically sucked it up and focused on it and dropped like almost 50 pounds. Might have been over 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you made a decision. You're like, man, this sucks. I'm going to change something. And then found somebody, a coach, basically, to help you through it, and then made the decision and executed.
Yeah, and I think having a coach, like having someone, because I'm not really a coach kind of person. I don't really I like to do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But I always thought I was going on different diets, eating healthy and things. And she broke it down. It's just math, right? Like when you look at the macro stuff, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes more sense. And having someone that deals with that was able to let me succeed versus me trying to figure it out on my own. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I would have.
Yeah. Well, no, I get it. It's somebody that can kind of lead you down the path and say, hey, just do this, and you're motivated, and you got other things going on in your life, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I decided that just because I'm 43 years old now. I gotta watch. I got kids.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm a couple of years older than you, and I'll tell you, time rolls, man. So it's good to be in good shape now, right?
Yeah. And looking back too, like even leading a team, stuff like that, like it's just better for me. Like I feel better, I clear all that kind of stuff. I didn't really do it for like to be muscular or anything, but my goal was to get to a 6-pack. I set like a super hard goal. I set a goal to something that I didn't think I could achieve, and then I hit it. And I'm like, okay. Now we just got to work on maintaining. That's the hard part.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So how does that apply? How does that apply to your business? I mean, do you use similar strategies in terms of setting a goal and breaking it down? And what are some things you've done there?
Yeah, sure. In business, I don't know. I got some issues because like I'll set goals and I set really big goals. And then when we hit them, we don't even celebrate. It's almost like, okay, good. Let's go to the next thing. So, which I think a lot of business owners relate to. And also in business too, I noticed like that's why I got into real estate is because I'd hit goals. And if I hit a big goal afterwards, it's like, I always call it a goal-driven depression. It's like, what do you do next? So I started just buying real estate all the time. So I always have a project going on. But yeah, it's like one of the things, like I always push for large, pretty big goals. Like ones I don't think I can hit, then I hit them. And then it's like, okay, let's just go to the next thing. We don't even digest what we did, which lets us scale and we're real successful. But it's like, be nice to be able to enjoy the moment, I'm just not built like that.
It is hard for an entrepreneur though, because you're so driven, right? You've got these goals and visions, and there's always something bigger, right? No matter where you are, you're like, okay, we did this. And I think there is a danger. You can probably do it yourself as the entrepreneur, but your team that's behind you, it seems they really need to take a moment and smell the roses, right? That, hey, we achieved something here.
Well, yeah, and that's where it's hard too, because I'm so direct. It's like, no, you got to take time with the team. Like they need their hugs pretty much. You know what I mean? And just because that's how people are, it's like, oh, you achieve something as a like not everyone's just a psychopath that just wants to keep hitting goals. Most people want to, okay, we hit a goal, good, and let's have a party about it or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take that into consideration because it's not, once you start growing with the team, it's not just about you. The team's the one helping you get there.
Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It is one of the lessons you're going to learn at some point in your entrepreneurial career is that, yeah, I mean, you're limited by yourself. You're going to multiply and scale with other people, but you have to be a human being too, not just a driver of this is what we're going to do. People
Right.
don't want to they don't want to work for a driver.
No.
People
But beat you down.
Yeah, I know. People, they quit, studies have shown employees quit managers. They don't quit companies.
Right.
So one of the things that we like to talk about on this show is any failures along the way. I mean, what lessons have you learned maybe the hard way that you're willing to share, or maybe something in particular that really struck close to home for you?
Yeah, sure. So number one, I got into real estate with Ron LeGrand's, which I said earlier. And then probably about 2005, one of my buddies hooked me up. The guy that actually got me into digital marketing, we started dealing with pre-construction real estate, which is not a good time with 2008 coming up, right? So we were dealing with this, and I still didn't have a bunch of cash. And we were dealing with it in Florida. So we were dealing with this guy. He's like, hey, you know what? Get your license down here. My buddy Phil was generating the leads. We're going to get a bunch of leads on pre-construction real estate. I'm going to be the guy that sells them. And then we're all going to make a bunch of money and it's going to be great. That one, I pulled $40,000 out of my personal residence, which was a ton, just to like float it.
Yeah.
Went down there. Turns out the guy was scamming. Like he was just like a legit scammer. Like not even, the market crashed and everything, which sucked. But this guy was literally scamming people.
Yeah.
And it's like, that stung really bad. Because number one, it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then even after that, like I started stressing so much that I wasn't really sleeping, and it kind of broke my brain. You know what I mean? Like I had to go into the hospital for that one. It took like probably a year mentally to recover, just because you're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And you run so fast at it. Mm-hmm. And then when you fail, it's like, that sucked, which you learn a lot from it, but getting back up on a horse, like some of those things that like hit you really hard, they sting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can imagine in the situation, not only were you running hard and it failed, but the deception involved, right? I mean, how did that make you feel?
Well, it sucked because I'm pulling money out of my house, and it's like, oh yeah, we got hey, you just made this much money on this deal, this much money on this deal, which they never went to close. So you're banking on you sold a property, and you're gonna get paid in 60 days, and the money never comes. So I'm like, oh crap, like I just put all this money, all this equity I had in my house into this that's just a ripoff, and all the time. And it just messes with your brain a lot, which I'm sure everyone deals with that. Like, and I do like failing. Like, I don't like failing, but I like being uncomfortable and learning from failing. So I'm not scared to do that. But like that one stung. Like when it breaks your brain,
And then you have to like crawl in and explain it to your wife, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, my problem was too, is I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, am I an idiot? Is my reality real? Or because you're on pipe dreams right there. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, what I'm believing is not real. So you got to start thinking, okay, are the decisions you're making good or not? And it kind of like gives you a conflict in your head.
Shakes your confidence a little bit, doesn't it?
Big time. Yep. Yeah. So that was a big one. I fail all the time now, though, just on small scales, but I try to not do that as much.
Mm-hmm. But you fail because you're taking action, right? You're trying things new. You're pushing the envelope, right? I mean, it's inevitable, right?
Yeah. I learned with that, though, don't expect unrealistic gains. Like anything that looks like it's going to make you a lot of money quickly is usually something you should stay away from.
Now, that is sage advice. Yeah. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is, right? At the end of the day. There's a reason why that cliche is out there.
Right.
Do you have anybody in your life that when you run into a situation like that where something really looks good that you sort of bounce off to get kind of a sanity check before you dive in, or what do you stand with that sort of thing? You
know what I do is, if you ever read, I don't know if you've read the book Richest Man in Babylon.
I have.
Okay, so every decision I make, I go through the 5 laws of gold.
Okay.
And if it checks those boxes, just from the business side, like not personal things, but if it checks all 5 of those laws, then it's usually a safe bet for me. And one of them is don't expect unrealistic gains. One's don't get involved with tricksters and schemers, you know? So it's like, if you look at things like that, that helps. Like, my wife's not really involved too much on the business side.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk to her about business and she's like, whatever you think.
Right.
I have a business partner, Chad, which I can bounce stuff off of, but the richest man in Babylon's the best. That one page is what I attribute a lot of my success to and a lot of my decision changes.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think having a simple filter like that is a good thing. I put one of the simple decision filters I put in my life a long time ago was like I would never make a decision to buy something, anything major, like the moment it's presented to me. I always need a 3-day cooling off period.
That's smart.
And, because it's like, well, if it's good today, it'll be good in 3 days. And if it's not good in 3 days, then I don't want to be regretful that I did it.
Right.
And if it's not available in 3 days, then another deal will come along, another opportunity. So that saved my bacon a lot, because I've made bad decisions too out of emotion, thinking that, oh yeah, entrepreneurs, we like to see that shiny object, right? And we're like, this is going to be great. And until it's not. So, and most of them aren't. Most of them more shine. They're fool's gold, right?
Yeah. You know what? Even like hiring people and stuff now, like when I'm talking with people, it's like, oh man, I want to hire this guy. And same thing, like given that cool off period, then you talk to other people too, and then you can make educated decisions versus emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, boy, that's a tricky area. We could do a whole show on that, write books on hiring people and what's involved. Some people are really good at presenting themselves and all that. I think the biggest advice I learned on that is hire slow and fire fast. And, because, I'm sure this, I've experienced this in many times in my life, is that, man, if I should have fired that person 6 months ago, but I didn't because of, a litany of reasons that were all, let's just say, emotionally driven and not factually driven. And the ancillary damage from not making that decision sooner is generally much greater than any pain I would have associated with getting rid of them up front.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And to the team, most of it's to the team, because the team is like, golly D, I'm glad you finally let them go, because we all knew for months that they were terrible. And they're like, what's wrong with you? Didn't you see it? Fearless leader.
Yeah, and it's tough because you feel bad. Like you don't want to, and you feel like you're going to ruin that person's life, but really, if they're not a fit, you're doing them a solid too.
That's right. Absolutely. They get something that's a better fit for them. Hey, finishing up here, I want to talk a little bit about, because you're doing some really cool things in terms of your giving and your giving back to the community, making a difference, because I think that's critical. That's one of the things I'm super interested in with all of our entrepreneurs. Successful people tend to be givers. What are you doing in that area?
Yeah, sure. So what I do is I got different bank accounts, right? Mm-hmm. So like I have my reserve account, I have my tax account, and I have an account for Give. I just call it Give. It's just an account with Ally, right? Mm-hmm. I pull 10% of all my income and I just put it in there. I don't know what it's going to be for. And then I just wait for stuff to pop up, because I found it's a lot easier to give money that I've allocated for that and hold it out than when something pops up and I got to cut it out of my normal living expense checkbook. And so what I've started to do, like I'll just keep it there. Like if something pops up, boom, check. It's already, in my mind, it's already spent. So it doesn't count for anything. But then what I've started doing too is, since I do digital marketing, is like if I see a charity or something that needs help, like I can cut them a check for a couple grand, or I started doing their marketing for them. Like, hey, you know what? Let me just kick in like a couple $1,000 ad spend. I'll handle the ads to see if we can get some momentum going for you. Because a lot of charities and places like that don't know what they're doing online. Mm-hmm. So we've started doing that as well. And that's been pretty fulfilling.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So you're taking a systematic approach to allocating a give back fund, and you're utilizing it in some creative ways, but you maybe even multiplying that money, as opposed to just giving them money that they might just blow, or maybe not use as efficiently as could be done in a situation like this, where you're helping them to expand their reach.
Yeah. And I really like having that separate account, because like, for example, there's an organization here in Pittsburgh that deals with the homeless. Mm-hmm. So sometimes especially in the winter, cause it gets cold here, they'll post something up. They're like, hey, we have an Amazon, wish list of things we need, like underwear, socks, shoes, stuff like that. It's like, I got a couple thousand. I just ship them like a ton of stuff. They're getting bunches of boxes. And it's nice because that money's already allocated there. It's like, okay, when you see someone in need, you don't have to find them. They're going to pop up.
Yeah.
And when they are, you can just deploy it.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That is fan. I'm excited. Man, I tell you, all the most successful entrepreneurs, business owners I know are just huge givers. And I think you're rewarded for that.
I do too. I think you put it out there. For some reason, you're always like, things come back good.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Well, Bryan, this has been a lot of fun, man. I've learned a lot today. I can see why your business is so successful. Why don't you let's finish up and tell how, if we've got some real estate investors, they're interested in wholesaling, they're interested in buying distressed properties, how do they get in contact with you?
Sure. You can just check out our website. It's motivatedleads.com. Yeah. And if you're looking for leads, we do it on a pay-per lead basis. So no monthly contracts, real risk-free.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is a great way to get started. So, awesome, man. And do you have limits? Can they buy 5 a month or 5,000 a month from you, or what?
It's kind of as many as you want. Like leads, these are people that just filled out a form like a second before we send it, saying they're waiting for a phone call. You can buy as many as you want if we can get them. Like every market's going to be different. Leads start at like $300. Average deal is going to cost you like $3 to $4 grand. So it's not like it's a get rich quick kind of thing. You still got to work the numbers.
Sure.
But yeah, usually we close 1 out of 10.
Oh, what? That's not bad. 10% actually, not bad at all. As long as you're moving fast and you're negotiating and you're doing what needs to do.
Got to be quick, yeah.
Got to be quick. Okay, awesome. Well, I have a couple of guys in mind that might be interested in this. I will definitely. I'm going to pass your information along to them and see if they would like to bite. So, Bryan, thanks for your time today, man. This has been great.
Hey, thanks for having me. A good time.
Yeah, you bet.